Meanwhile, the state chairman forum of the party is calling on the Independent National Electoral Commission and Nigerians to disregard the suspension of the ADC presidential candidate Jumebi Kachiku by the outgoing party national chairman, that's Ralph Nwosu. Chairman of the forum, that's Kingsley Temitope-Oga, disclosed while addressing journalists in Abuja, and he described as illegal and unconstitutional the meeting which took place on the 26th of August 2022 by the dissolved National Working Committee of the party, which masqueraded as the National Executive Committee to extend the tenure of the outgoing ADC National Executive. He also says that the thing was that they did not meet the constitutional requirements provided by the article, that's 23A and B of the ADC Constitution.
It is important to state here that what transpired on the 26th of August 2022 at the ADC Secretariat is fake, unconstitutional, null and void, and of no effect to us.
So if you have not been able to show capacity in this direction for the past 17 years, what moral justification do you have to lead the people that you say you are leading? If I am in that category, by now I would have bowed out in office and allow those who have the capacity to do so to lead. My advice to those who are in support of what they are doing right now, to kindly have a rethink and see how they can align themselves with someone who has a mission to rescue this nation so that we can all together celebrate at the end of 2023 general election.
Joining us from our Abuja studio to discuss all of this development and continuous impasse in the African Democratic Congress is a lawyer and human rights advocate, Liborous Oshoma. Liborous, good to have you with us. So are the ADC regional chairmen within their legal rights to call for Ralph Nwosu's resignation? What is the main bone of contention here, legally speaking, that is?
Thank you, Nii. First and foremost, when I heard that the national chairman of the party has been in office as chairman of a political party for 17 years, I was taken aback and I asked myself, what has INEC been doing to allow a political party, have a chairman that will occupy office from 2005 till date? And what had the members of the party been doing to allow that impunity to reign supreme? It means that from inception of the party that they've only had one chairman. And I wonder if INEC is consistently on the neck of other major political parties, why did INEC look away in as far as the ADC is concerned? And because right from your introduction, you had said that by virtue of Article 23(1) of the Constitution of the party, that the tenure of a chairman is supposed to be 4 years, renewable for another 4 years. That's maximum 8 years, just like you have, in the Nigerian political space. So for somebody to occupy an office for 17 years, for me, that is an aberration. Even if, because from the fact that I gathered from the public space, is the fact that the tenure of the chairman had expired on the 25th. Another tenure had expired on the 21st of August in 2022. And that subsequently a meeting of the NEC was called. Mind you, the NEC in any political party is the major decision organ of the party. The National Working Committee is an elected body that is elected for a tenure of 4 years. And so once the decision, just like it happened with APC, if you remember, when during the Oshomole crisis, the president had to step in and call a NEC meeting to rescue, the legal quagmire and the legal conundrum that they had at that time. It is the same crisis that the ADC had presently, and that the only legal body that has power to call for a meeting on the ground that the tenure of an existing National Working Committee had expired by virtue of Article 23 of the political party's constitution is the NEC. And so if the NEC had called for a meeting 5 days after the expiration of the tenure of the National Working Committee and the chairman, then INEC INEC on their part had said that they had a notice of the meeting, a 28 days notice of the meeting. So one would wonder that a meeting that was called 5 days earlier, so at what point did INEC now get a 28 days notice of such meeting? That's the big question I've been asking myself, that I've been trying to unwrap my head around. That a meeting called 5 days before, and INEC already had 28 days notice. It means that, you know, even the laws are not complied with. Assuming, without conceding, that truly INEC indeed had 28 days notice or 21 days notice of that meeting, why will INEC sit down and superintend over an illegal act? Because INEC also know, by virtue of the Electoral Act, that the chairman cannot occupy office beyond 8 years. And to now extend, contrary to the concern of their party also, the tenure of the chairman by 1 year, supervised by INEC. That, for me, it's you know, an umpire taking part in illegality. That's the big question I've been asking myself. And, you know, really, if you look at the Electoral Act, the entire gamut of the Electoral Act and the party constitution, which I have taken my time to study before coming here, I find it's very, very unjustifiable. I have not seen anywhere where the law, you know, of the concern of the party even empowers anybody to extend the tenure of the national chairman of the party, even if he had only held office for 4 years.
Well said. I think what's more concerning for me is the fact that this happened under INEC's watch, like you rightly pointed out. Clearly, we're in election season. The general elections are coming up. It appears as though INEC has been compromised. 17 years is not a short time. So I'm just wondering what we should expect to see when it comes to INEC enforcing the Electoral Act when it's time for the 2023 elections, based on what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, I think that's where consistently I have maintained that people should be more concerned about INEC. I have faith in the national chairman of INEC, but like the political question in Nigeria, you can have one man who wants to make a whole difference, but you have, you know, entire body of staff that also are more concerned about their pocket. The question then would be, like I have asked, the chairman had occupied office for 17 years. And at every turn, INEC will tell you that they monitor the convention held by the party. And at the end of the day, this tenure will be extended contrary to the provision of our electoral laws. That's on one side. Then now, the question he asked me was, who is constitutionally empowered now that there is a lacuna? The body that is constitutionally empowered to call any meeting of any political party, not just the ADC, of any political party by our rules, once the tenure of a National Working Committee expires, is the neck of the party. That's the National Executive Council of that party, comprising majorly the state party chairman, the state executive, and then the National Working Committee. But in the event that the tenure of the National Working Committee had expired, what you have remaining will not be the state party chairman that will now take steps to rescue the party. And I think that the NEC should take that step timeously, and especially now that the elections are approaching. And then also, I also think that you should approach INEC. Let INEC give them the inventory of the document received, all the letters received right from, you know, the point of submission to the registry of INEC, to establish truly that notice of meetings were given, statutory notice of meeting, as at when due. Because there are allegations in the public domain also that meeting was barely called 5 days before. So, and that's where INEC also should, the chairman, Professor Yakub Mahmoud, should try as much as he can to ensure that there is a monitoring unit, a special chairman monitoring unit, like you have the IG monitoring unit, a special monitoring unit that will insist on compliance with the extant laws of the land. Because the moment the credibility and the impartiality of INEC is lost, then people are not going to have faith in the election. And once people don't have faith in the election, then we'll have a big, you know, kettle of fish coming. And, you know, people don't have faith in the process. Already there are predictions that Nigerians will disintegrate after the 2023 general elections because of doubts created. And it is beholds on INEC to manage this quagmire. And they cannot manage it by being partial, you know, in cases, minute cases like this.
Very good, Liborous. And in a twist of events, I'd like your thoughts on Dumebi Kachiku's suspension as ADC presidential candidate, purportedly by Ralph Uwosu. Isn't that barking on the wrong tree here? And what is the grounds for this development?
The question is, if you look at the laws, that was what even led to the crisis in the political party was the arbitrariness of the national chairman having to unilaterally suspend the state chairman in Abia State. This same issue played out, attempted to play out in APC, if you remember. The people, the party, the members of the party that had a right constitutionally and by party constitution to suspend a member is the ward executive of that party. Dumebi Kachiku registered at a ward in the political party. The national chairman cannot unilaterally sit down somewhere. In the case of Oshoma, if you remember, it was his ward chairman and some members of the party that suspended him. So also, if a party member is resigning from a party, a letter is addressed to his ward chairman and not to the national chairman of the party. But be that as it may, even the national chairman's tenure is alleged to have expired on the 21st of August. So a man whose tenure has expired, can he, even if he had the power to suspend party members, can he act in that stead, his tenure having expired? Legally speaking, the answer is no. You cannot perform the functions of an office that you do not have the capacity to occupy, that you're not holding. And then secondly, there was a purported, convention, as alleged by the state party chairman, that they called for a meeting, but at the end of the day, they were deprived from entering the meeting, and that some members were clothed in the party uniforms, and then purportedly extended the tenure of Mr. Wosu. The question is, if you look at the entire gamut of the constitution, is there any provision in the constitution of the party, empowering anybody, whether the National Working Committee, whether the neck of the party, to extend the tenure of a sitting chairman? The answer is no. That issue also played out in APC during the tenure of Oyegu, when the NEC attempted or purportedly extended his tenure by 1 year, if you remember, in 2015. And the president, confronted with the reality of their constitution, quickly intervened and a convention held, and Oshomole was elected as a party leader. So in this case, the action of the National Working Committee, the chairman, the outgone chairman of the party, it's to traverse the law, it's to traverse the constitution of their party, and then also it is unknown to logic. So I do not, these are not issues you say, you take arbitrary decision and say go to court. We should try as much as we can as a people to not allow illegality fester and now say go to court, because that's how we belabor the court with unnecessary matters that are unknown to our legal jurisprudence. You take a decision that ordinarily is not valid and you say go and contest it in court. So by virtue of the analysis I have given, that decision cannot stand. The man does not have the constitutional powers to suspend any party member. It is the chairman, the ward chairman of that party member that can suspend such a party member.
Fantastic. Of course, we know that ADC prides itself of being one of those third force parties. But the more that we analyze and look at this, they seem all over the place and look more like the ruling party and the opposition. I'm just wondering if you think that all this ruckus, if you think all this ruckus would cost ADC at the polls, because we had one of their members in the studio and he was telling us to mark his words that they will take the presidency. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think if the ADC is not careful, if the state chairmen do not hastily resolve their crisis and put their foot down, it will affect their outcome, their performance in the election. Let me quickly take you to Ondo. If you remember, during the 2016 election, was it 2016 state governorship election in Ondo, where the candidate of the PDP had a running battle with, Ita Jegede had a running battle with Jimo Ibrahim. He was in court consistently until a week before the election. And we knew how that affected him, because you're not settled. The party members and supporters do not even know who the candidate is or whether issues have been resolved. If you remember, this was also the crisis that the ADC had in the 2019 general election. You remember the late Melaifa, who was the presidential candidate of the party, and few weeks to the election, the national chairman of the party purportedly suspended him, and that cost them, a large chunk of voters in the election. So they also need to resolve this. If they do not resolve it, it will massively, deal a great blow, in their performance in the general election. So, and that's why the state party chairman should immediately swing in and do the needful to ensure that this crisis is resolved, and hold a convention, not even a national, a caretaker committee, because you have a caretaker committee also. Going into an election, it is also not helpful. The state party chairman should indeed hold an election, a convention, and then conduct a general election and have a party structure in place that will in turn go into an election, with a formidable force.
Indeed, Liborous, very good. Now, still looking at Ralph Nwosu as a person, does he have any reason to oppose agitations for his removal from office in court on account of these strong narratives against him? Should they choose?
You see, this is the only country, politics first and foremost is the only business that some persons have. So year in, year out, you see them 4 years after, they play politics, then they go back to sleep, eat from their largesse, and then 4 years after they come back again. So that's why first and foremost, a politician or a candidate would hold an office for 17 years, contrary to the provisions of the law, and INEC will close their eyes to it. And when the tenure of that same candidate expires, he's struggling to ensure that, he perpetuates himself in the office. Look at the Senate. I think we discussed this last time, that the Senate is almost turned into a retirement home. Yes, this same platform last Saturday, we discussed how the Senate had been turned to a retirement home for former governors. So, and it is the same thing that you see playing out in party structures, where party chairmen, national working committee members who want to remain in office in perpetuity, unquestioned, and do whatever they like. So, I do not think after holding office for 17 years, it is no longer a moral issue now, it is a legal issue. Even if you do not, you don't care about the moral burden. But constitutionally, do you still have, the legal or the constitutional power to remain in that office even for a day extra after spending 17 years in that office, contrary to Article 23 of your constitution? The answer is no. So I do not even see what the grounds is why the man would want to challenge his ouster from office. If the party had been sleeping and they are waking up now to say, no, we need to ensure that there's compliance with our law, then it should be good for all of the party members. The people, the national chairman, should be happy. He should play the role of a big man, maybe elevate to Board of Trustees chairman, and then begin to play, the father role, instead of still wanting to remain in office after 17 years. It is sad. When people consistently maintain, a sit-tight attitude like this, and then you tell your children you are the leaders of tomorrow. How can your children become leaders of tomorrow when people who were in kindergarten, when you became chairman of a political party, today are graduate and even planning to contest for office, and you are still the chairman of that party, and now the party members have said, well, you have done so well, it is time to go. You say, no, I want to remain. For me, it shows that there's basically no life outside of politics for certain persons, and so they want to perpetuate themselves in office, and they do not think that the best thing, everything about life is temporal, and you add beauty. According to William Shakespeare, you almost add beauty to a thing by admitting that it is temporal.
Well said. Now, if things stay the way that they are and ADC does not get its act in order, do you foresee a defection, mass defection of some of the members?
I do. Yes and no. Because, you know, politicians, the way they play their game here, fortunately, they have a sitting member of the House of Rep, who is from, I think, Kogi State also. So, if a house, like they say, a house divided against itself will not stand. But what I see majority of the members, you know, wanting to uphold the tenets of their constitution. And definitely those people that have lost out, if at the end of the day, it is decided, because here we always say, let the court decide, even for matters that are clear, visible, audible to the blind and audible to the deaf and visible to the blind. If at the end of the day, the party state chairmen are able to maintain their ground and insist on the provisions of the constitution, then some persons definitely will want to leave, you know, having lost out. But I like politicians. They always set up this committee, reconciliatory committee. And if it is also, as alleged by some party members also, that what most of these fringe political candidate chairmen or political parties do is that they sell candidature to the major party, then some of them might just want to find nest in some of these other political parties. So, but how they reconcile all their differences, it's entirely left to them. But I think and I believe that the reconciliation should be squarely, it should rest squarely on the tenets and jurisprudence of the Electoral Act and the party constitution.
Indeed, Liborous. Hopefully you can do justice to this in 2 minutes. Still talking about the replacement possibility for the party's chairmanship position. How do you think that will play out within now and next year's general elections if they don't put their act together? Yeah,
the APC in 2015, you know, had a similar crisis. So we always have a precedent to draw from. APC had a similar crisis almost a year to the general election. The tenure of the then chairman of the party, Chief John Odige Oyegu, expired, and some members of the National Executive Council attempted to give him a tenure elongation for 1 year to enable them to go into the election. But when they discovered that it was illegal and unconstitutional, they quickly did the right thing, called a convention, and then Oshomole emerged. And at the end of the day, they still won that election. So all they need is a house, you know, united. So, you know, and anchored under the, the tenets of their constitution and the ground norm. So if they do that, definitely that will unite majority of the people who believe that, you know, the law should be supreme. So once they are able to, you know, resolve all of this crisis, go into a convention, elect, you know, democratic National Working Committee members and candidates, and that will also inject fresh blood and fresh vigor into their party, and they'll be able to go into the election. And who knows, you know, now that Nigerians are yearning for something entirely different, and if they're able to, you know, go to the convince people, you know, in the nooks and crannies of the country, who knows, any new thing can just happen.
Well, hopefully something positive will come out of this at the end of the day. Liborous Oshoma, lawyer activist, would like to thank you for your thoughts on the current ADC crisis and, of course, imbroglio as well.